Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Studio 78 podcast. I am your host, Nache from NacheSnow.com. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Really excited about this week's guest, Kishshana Palmer. She is a focus and purpose coach, and she gives some amazing advice. Before I get into her episode, just a couple of things. Remember, if you want to order the journal, go over to NacheSnow.com/journal and type in the coupon code FREESHIP, FRESHIP, and you get free shipping. And while supplies last, I will also include a bookmark and my quote cards in the package. So please head on over there. Also, what's crazy is by the time this episode airs, I will have turned 40 on March 31st. It's kind of like crazy. I've been partying all month. I feel good about it. Like, it's not like I'm like, oh my God, I'm 40. It's like, oh my God, I'm 40. And so really like the crazy part is like, okay, like this is like the quote second half of my life. And I feel like I have like set out to do things and I've accomplished like what I wanted to accomplish. So now I guess the weird, scary part is I'm like, okay, for the second half of my life, like what are the things I want to do? And I'm like, I am not quite sure yet, which just makes this episode like so perfect because I'm like, what do I want to do now? Not that you always have to have something, right? But I'm just kind of like looking forward to figuring out like what goals I want to accomplish and really figuring out like what my purpose is and how I can impact others. So I'm super, super excited about that. Anyway, back to Kishshana. So in today's episode, she tells us a little bit about her background because she started out in fundraising and working for some national nonprofit organizations. And then she decided to go into business for herself. And so she talks a little bit about that, the pros and cons of how she did it. And then really her coaching practice is not just for people who want to become entrepreneurs like her, but also like just career women who are maybe middle management or whatever. And then they're trying to figure out how to figure out what their next step is, if that's moving up the ladder or moving into another position, whatever that might be. And so she just, through her story, she gives like just some really good advice, some things that she's learned. And I love like her vulnerability in this episode because she admits like, hey, she has hard times too. There's periods where she has felt overwhelmed. And she talks to us about how she has figured that out and like the questions that you need to ask yourself in order to like move yourself forward. So I really appreciate her authenticity and her vulnerability. I just really had a wonderful, wonderful time talking to her. And I think you'll really enjoy this episode. Anyway, let's get into it. Here we go. Hello, Kishshana. Welcome to the Studio 78 podcast. How are you?
I am doing well. How are you today?
I am good. Ready to start this day, this beautiful Sunday. I got a brunch later. I feel like I've just been eating way too much lately, though. I was really good. I've been eating clean for the last like month or so, and then I just fell off the wagon a week ago.
Yeah,
Like way off the
like
wagon.
when did I fall off the wagon? Months ago, years ago. No, wait. I have like a foot in syrup on the horse that's behind the wagon. Okay,
I know, right?
dragging along. Here I am. Wait, I'm gonna catch up. Hold on, guys. Yes.
Done. Right. But I'm so glad to have you on the podcast. Before we get into like what you do now, can you just tell the audience a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. Before I ventured into the wonderful wide world of entrepreneurship full time, I am a recovering fundraiser. I led the external affairs teams for a number of really amazing national nonprofit organizations over the last 16 years now. Gosh. And so that was
Wow.
focusing on fundraising, on communications, and on marketing and on policy. And so
Mm,
most of my life was in managing great people, getting folks to invest in missions and causes that affected where they worked and where they lived, and influencing the policy of whatever, focus area I was working on at the time. And so that's pretty much my background. I had a short stint in investment banking, and by short I mean really short. Uh, and found myself in the social sector for pretty much my entire career.
Wow, and how did you land in that? Was it you saw like a position and you said this might be interesting? Like how did you get there?
You know, um, I don't really remember. And like it's the
Mm,
funniest story because people are like, I don't know how I got it. I'm like, no, no, but it's true. I know what my first job was. And I don't remember applying for the job is the thing. So
right,
I
okay.
graduated from, when I graduated from my MBA program, I graduated during, I think it was like the Asian stock market crash.
Mm,
And so I had this great, fabulous, shiny degree. And people were like, oh, you have such wonderful credentials, no experience. And
mm,
then I would go to apply for, like, coordinator jobs then, right? So I'll get experience. And they would say, wow, such fabulous credentials, so credentialed that we can't hire you because you're not going to stay. What? And so
mm.
probably it probably was like, job application number 400, 35. And I don't remember actually applying, but when I got the call for the interview, it was for a grant writer role. And I'd never written grants before. I was like, what is
Yeah.
this grant writing? When did I apply for this job? And so I remember the morning of the interview, I like looked up how to write grants. Because, when you hit the ripe old age of 22, you don't really realize that maybe you should be prepared for your
Right.
more than the morning of. I mean, come on, Kishshana. So I'm trying to like memorize like how to do this well so I can go ahead and have an intelligent conversation. Well, either way, I must have done something right because I did get the job and didn't learn until probably 3 years later when I was leaving that role that they had made a bet that morning. They loved me, they thought I was great, and they made a bet about how long I was going to last there.
Oh
Yeah, but no one let me know, so I didn't get in on the pot. Okay, like I am very resentful of that, and that I was not in on this pot of money.
wow.
Who won the money? No one wants to say. But
Right.
either way, that is how I ended up in nonprofit management and how I ended up in fundraising. And it was basically me, starting out as a grant writer and then obnoxiously saying to my boss, I don't really think that I want to work in a cubicle my whole life and write grants.
Mm,
I need to be with people. And
mm.
and to her grace, was like, okay, I'm going to ignore this obnoxious young person. And she said, well, go and figure out what you want to do in the organization. And thankfully, it was a very large and matrix organization. And I was able to do so. So I did a lot of project management, particularly around the decentralized organizational parts, where they were trying to figure out how to continue to raise revenue and what that looked like. And so I was able to get to cut my teeth pretty early and pretty deeply in a field I knew nothing about. So that,
Mm.
that is the long circuitous route to how I ended up in my career before I ended up where I am right now, which is the story of my whole life, Nache.
Right. But then you're like doing that for years. So at what point like did you start like doing things on the side initially as a side hustle and then jumped into entrepreneurship or jumped right in? So, I'm curious about how you got here.
Totally. So, fundraising is one of those fields where, in my mind's eye, I was single when I started. I got married, had a baby, and my now ex husband, I thought I was going to be the trailing spouse, right? So I was like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm going to be all over the country and the world with his like amazing finance career. And fundraising is the perfect kind of job to have because you can raise money anywhere.
Mm.
And so, right around the time when I realized, oh, this is not going to be my forever love, okay, I started taking on projects on the side. And it sort of started out, I always tease and say, it started out like Gucci money, private Swift lessons for my daughter money, stash if he ever leaves me money. Uh,
Right.
and I never really thought about how to grow a business from in a real strategic way. I just liked working with people. And
Mm.
so really just started responding to folks' requests. Hey, Kishshana, oh my gosh, you were so awesome at the mixer at this conference. Can you come talk to my board?
Mm.
Oh wow, Kishshana, I met you at fill in the blank conference. It'd be awesome if you can come talk to my staff. And so there was no planning. There was no, real like, well, what is this going to really look like? But it was able to be a nice supplemental piece of my life as a full time professional and practitioner for a long time.
Mm.
And so probably the first time I jumped out full time was almost 5 years ago now. And I was leaving a role. My manager was leaving to go take on a big job somewhere else. She was pretty much the only reason I was in that job. And it was time for me to move on. And someone I'd met at yet another mixer was like, "Hey, we're looking for an interim director of development for our organization, and we need somebody to start like yesterday." And I was like,
Wow,
"Absolutely,
perfect timing.
timing. I did it for 2 years." So, do you feel, Nache, like I ever learned how to prospect for clients? No. And and as a fundraiser, you prospect all the time. So, it's not like I don't have the actual skill. I
Right.
have to do it for myself. And as you probably know, talking with lots
Yeah.
of entrepreneurs, talking about yourself, selling yourself, being able to really demonstrate your own expertise in a way that does not feel self-aggrandizing to you is really tough.
It is so tough. And I feel like it's easier to do it for others and help others with it. But when it comes to yourself, your business, I don't know why, but it's really hard.
So hard. And I
Yeah.
still had no idea. So when I got lured back into working for another organization full time, do you think that I learned my lesson the first time, Shay? And actually let people know that I'm a consultant and make sure that I keep the connections and I keep working the room. And I did not.
Right.
I went back to work. Okay. And so a year later, I looked up and said, I'm not here for this. This is not what I want to be doing with my life. I really want to be on my own. I really want to spend more time with my then early preteen daughter, and thought it would be just as easy as it was the last time. And therein lied the truth. Woo,
Right.
Nelly, this thing is hard. Oh my word. I do not have the like, and then I launched my favorite course and made $30,000 in 1 month. No, that's not my story. What is a course? How does one launch it? What are funnels and how do one, where?
I know. I was like joking with someone the other day. I was like, what are all these funnels people keep talking about? It seems so complicated.
It's so complicated.
I'm
Why are
like,
funnels
do
and
I
why do
have to
people do
do
them?
webinars? Like, what is going on here?
Exactly. Oh my gosh. And I was like, it does not have to, it can't be this way. It cannot be this way. It really isn't this way. And so that is what that's what landed me where we are today.
Well, that's interesting too, because I think, what's scary for some people is like, they might have these 9 to 5 jobs, but they know like it's not for them. Maybe it's not terrible, but they're just like, I want to do something more. But then they get comfortable, right? Like if you've been in a job 5, 10 years or similar positions, you're just like, I have a 401k, I have a steady paycheck coming in every 2 weeks. And so I think that jump is scary. So for you, did you jump once you made enough money where you were like, oh my, okay, I could pay bills and like, live a decent lifestyle? Or did you just like go all in?
I just went all in because I have no sense. I just back to my naivete that this would be a piece of cake. I always like to reference that if your back is against the wall and you need to make it happen as an entrepreneur, we are industrious when we need to be, particularly if you have an industrious nature as a part of your personality makeup. Like you can get stuff done, but that is not the way in which I would suggest you do it. When
Right.
I talk with my clients, I'm always talking about when you put your fingers together, make a little circle and say, okay, that's your concentric circle, thumb to pinky of comfort. Then open
Mm,
up your fingers just a little bit. That's where I want you to start with your new level of comfort.
mm,
And even being able to have thought this through 3 more months beyond when I did it would have given me that much more room
mm,
to make some mistakes, to ask more questions, to be more inquisitive, than to just go. And so I
right.
think that, what it has taught me over the last almost 2 years now is that I have the ability to make stuff happen. I've just about this year, probably, if I keep focused, I will have replicated my income from when I worked for an organization full time.
Mm,
Um, which I think, I'm very proud of because folks love to talk about the thousands and thousands of dollars it takes that they're able to do in passive income. And I didn't learn about any of that stuff early enough, nor did I understand how I could make that work in my own business because I chose to open a practice in my apparent area of expertise. And so since I had done fundraising for so long, I led with that foot in terms of my
mm.
consulting practice. And now just about 2 years later, I'm completely pivoting away from that and doing what it
Mm.
is I actually have been doing for the last year and change, which is completely different. So it's like, trying to turn a cruise ship at a speedboat pace because I produce, whatever is going to come into my household and for the business. That's just me. And
Mhm.
so that kind of pressure and that kind of need does a couple of things. One, I am constantly thinking about how to not operate from the place of needing money and
Mm.
not let money be a driver for the decisions I make. Because even in my career, I was making six figures by the time I was 30, but I
Mhm.
made those decisions and I made those leaps based on money. And money is a tool, it is not the end. And so it didn't make me happy then. And I have to constantly remind myself that it doesn't make me happy now. And so if I was
Mhm.
counseling someone about how to jump into entrepreneurship, I wouldn't say you need 2 years to prepare. You need this, you need that. It's like really thinking about what problem are you solving for and how are you best uniquely positioned to solve for it, and being really
Mhm.
clear about what that is before you start spending any money. And
Yeah.
so that to me is it could be a very different way of looking at it than with some, there are lots of different ideas and philosophies about how to jump into your own business. But for me, in hindsight, that is the way I would have approached it.
Well, curious too, because I wanted to get into like your first year and then kind of your pivot now. But to start with your first year, so, you quit your job, you're like, okay, I'm all in. So, what did that first year look like? Like, how were you able to get clients and now like promote yourself and brand yourself and figure out how you were going to just sustain yourself?
Yeah. So I think the first few months, I was still, first year, to be quite honest,
Mm,
I still kept my one foot firmly in applying for full time jobs.
mm,
And
mm,
so I thought that I would do this business thing and still apply for roles that I really liked. But I didn't get any jobs, which for me was the first time in my whole career where I'm used to being recruited. I have no problem being able to get another executive level role. And this was the first time where I just was not landing. In that
mm,
first year, I also wasn't closing really any clients the way I thought I could. So I think
mm,
that first summer I put out like $240,000 of proposals,
mm,
which if I compared it to my fundraising close rate, I've been raising money for a long time, I should have been able to close close to 200 of that easy. Like my close
mm,
rate's high in raising money, and I didn't do any of it. It was insane.
mm,
And yet,
mm,
when on a rebrand, I spent money on a coach, I spent money on a mastermind, I spent money on marketing materials because I just thought like I just had to put it together and it'll be fine. And
right. Somebody, they will come. Yeah.
they would come. Oh yes. I mean it, and that was a bust. And so what ended up happening is I started tapping my personal network. And even then, notice I didn't say I tapped my business network because I didn't really know how. It was crazy. These are folks who I've been connected to, met at conferences, talked to loosely, sometimes online, but never said a thing, asked for a thing. Now I'm like, hey, about work. It was really hard for me to do that. And so actually, it was a number of my sorority sisters who were in positions to say yes to
Mm,
some strategic projects. And I was able to pick up some consulting projects that way, which was great. And then there were some other women who I was connected through those same networks who were like, I really need a coach to help me with fill in the blank life thing. And I was like, well, I'm not a life coach. You're like, yeah, but I just want to work with you because you're fun and you get stuff done.
right.
Okay. And so I did that. And then somebody was like, oh, well, can you come talk at this conference? We'll pay you. I was like, what? You pay me? And so
Like,
I was
okay,
able to
right.
like it was hysterical. Like for somebody who spent her whole career like being strategic, working on growth plans, growing out organizations from regional to national, growing out teams, raising millions of dollars. I was acting like I had no sense and no training.
But it's interesting that that was kind of like the pivotal point, like because I think sometimes people are afraid to tap into their personal network. They're like, oh, I don't want to bother them, so they focus really on trying to like contact strangers or people who don't really know them in order to get business. Where sometimes it's right there in front of you, if you're just willing to like put yourself out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it was so funny because the upside is that is how I started to get business. The downside are two, a couple of them. One is I still didn't really know what kind of business I was in. So
Mm,
people would
mm,
say like, "Oh, talk to Kishshana, she's a fundraiser. Oh, talk to Kishshana, she's a fundraising consultant. Oh, Kishshana, I wish I knew more people who needed your help, but since you're in fundraising, I don't know. Most of my friends work for corporate
mm.
entities or corporations, but that wasn't really what I was doing. I was really doing
Right.
talent management. I was doing training. I was doing custom retreats for boards and for teams. I was doing year-long coaching engagements with universities on their talent on the development teams. So I was in fundraising to a degree, but I was really working in human capital and doing a
Mm,
lot around training and custom trainings and making all of these fancy, rubrics around leadership and management accessible to individuals who are looking to grow and had to put that stuff to work the next day. And that's what I was doing, but I wasn't talking about it at all. And in fact, I didn't even know what to talk about. And so, like, my newsletter was growing, and people would be like, I was so inspired by your newsletter, but I'd only write it like once every 2 months because I was like, what's
right.
it every week? I don't know. I was a mess.
But
Um,
how
so
did you finally figure out like, okay, this is my thing and then this is what I'm gonna put out to the world? Like, how did you get there?
Yeah, I feel like I am just getting there now. And to be honest, the what got me there was really thinking about like how to put real bones into my coaching practice. How to first accept, am I a coach? Oh my God, because the word coach has such negative
It's like
connotation.
such power, right? Yeah.
Right. People are like, "Ugh," they put up like two fingers, like,
It's
no,
like, I don't know. Yeah.
I
It's
don't
like
know. And
coaching and consulting could be, yeah, words that people
words,
like,
they're
yeah,
like curse
cringe at a
words. Oh
little.
my
Yeah.
God. And then, I'm such a nerd. I love my good credentials. And so since I had not pursued a coaching credential at that point, I felt very reluctant to call myself that. And yet, when I looked at what business I did all of 2017 and part of 2016, that's what I was doing over and over.
Right. Yeah.
And in my clients, I'd have to push them out the door. You've been through 2 cycles with me. You've got to go. They're like,
Right.
but we want to stay the whole year. Nope. We've done
You're
this, this, this,
ready.
and this. You are ready to go. Like, I need you out. And so, basically, what helped me to start to turn things around was to one, acknowledge that I was drowning and
Mm,
that drowning did not equal failure.
mm,
And
mm.
I realized that the women that I was helping, and mostly women, and I had a couple of guy clients, men clients last year, but mostly women. 80% of my clients, both on the big projects, like strategic projects and training and stuff, are led by women. And then most of my coaching clients are women as well. And I realized, like, to be able to say, I am drowning and I can still help people, how do I get out of the water was really,
Mhm.
really important for me. And then who can help me do this and who is a master in their field at getting it done. It doesn't mean they're famous. It doesn't mean they're the most
Right.
expensive. It means that they are passionate and committed to solving the problem and solving for the pain point I am having. How do I surround myself with a crackpot team that is really going to get the job done and
Mm.
release the control? And so I realized that most of my clients were like super type A, high achievers, perfectionists, which the other side of perfection is procrastination, um,
Right.
in charge of their families, like as caregivers, moms, their parents, their cousin, Auntie Bobo, whatever it
Right.
was. They're the ones everybody calls for everything. So stretched, stretched, and stretched. And so
Yeah.
angry and confused and busy, but spinning.
Mhm.
And so I said, okay, first, let me just take a life inventory where I am right now. Like, what is actually happening in my life? And
Mhm.
then, what am I actually doing for money? Because let's face it, we have to live, and it takes money to do so. And then,
Yeah.
like, what am I actually passionate about? Forget what I've learned in school. Forget, like, what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, what am I actually passionate about? And then, what's my purpose? And is it singular or do I have multiple purposes? And can I weave those things together? And then
Mhm.
just putting it together, like that for me was a really important thing. Like, I'm very visual. And so, just to map all of that out with my nice, colorful sticky notes and colored pens and highlighters was very helpful for me to be able to see what I needed to do. And when you put things out in front of you and you kind of can move them around, you look at them and you're like, why am I trying to do these 12 things this month? This is dumb.
Right.
It's not going to work. And nobody knows about these 12 things but you. So this is silly. Let's knock this down. And then
Yeah.
get it through together, and then getting moving. Like that to me was like really, really helpful. And I figured like if I can do that for myself, and it's a work in progress, it's a cycle. Like you got to start all over again. It is not a set it and forget it kind of work. Um,
Mhm.
then I can help other people do that too. And so
Yeah.
that was how I really crystallized around one. I really am a focus and a purpose coach because lots of times we are just spinning.
Mhm.
So we're passionate, we're amazing, we're go-getters. Those are the women that typically I want to work with. Like I'm not here for your it'll just come someday from the sky. Like I'm that is not the life I'm living.
Yeah.
We are spinning and exhausted and angry about it and don't want to tell anybody about it, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and I find too, because I'm like a big journaler, like a bullet journaler, and so I always talk to people about kind of organization and knowing where your time is going. But a lot of times people don't even know where all their time is going. So they feel exhausted, right? And they don't understand like why they think they don't have enough time for things, but it's because they can't account for their time. They're just reacting and doing, right?
exactly right. Exactly right. And so I think that for me, the turnaround has been one, just to be able to stop long enough to say, my heart is racing. I'm taking my blood pressure 3 times a day. I am not even 40 years old. This is not okay.
Yeah.
And optically, everybody thinks that I am the bomb.com. Everybody's loose, lots of people. And that my life is so fantastical because I travel and I do this and that. And they have no idea that I am cracking at the foundation at every turn. How do
Right.
I like really fill in the cement cracks so I can't start this whole thing over? Or
Right.
I, you know? So yeah, so that's basically how I've come to start to really turn things around.
At this point, so now within your business, like what's kind of like the person that should go to you? Like so for this year, like as far as like your main focus, like what is your like ideal clients look like?
Totally. So for me this year, I have two focuses. One, to like really grow the coaching aspect of my business and really focus on women who are in, I call it the vortex, the spin, the whirlwind. So they're
Yeah.
either entrepreneurs who have so many ideas, so many sticky notes, so many things they've sort of started and stopped and are not quite seeing the level of success they'd want to see and just really need help to get focused. And
Mhm.
learn in any aspect of my life, the best coaches have coaches, the best therapists have therapists. Everybody has to go to another expert in order to be able to step up to the next level. And
Mhm.
I want to be able to work with women who are looking to do that in their entrepreneurial lives, but also in their careers. Because
Yeah.
everybody is not looking to be an entrepreneur. They're just not. But they're like, why am I still a middle manager when I am an amazing subject matter expert and I've been at this company or I've bounced around or whatever their story is and I'm not seeming to be able to move up? What does that look like when you work with somebody who can help you make that next step? And
Mhm.
hack what's happening in your living and in your growing and in your learning so that you're able to make those moves. And so for me, that person who is ready to make that shift in her life in a real tangible way and work alongside somebody who's going to love on them but push them like crazy to get stuff done, that to me is my ideal person. And then on the other side of the business, I'm always going to be doing professional development and custom trainings and talent management. And so being connected to folks who can bring me into their companies to work with their teams individually and on group, bring me into doing retreats, bring me into conferences to be able to help folks understand how to manage day to day and how to lead and what
Mm.
that looks like in practical application, particularly through diversity, equity, and inclusion lens are the two places I'm going to spend most of my time this year. And so whether that's in training, in speaking, in traveling for conferences, in one-on-one work, like all of my work sort of will come together under those two umbrellas.
Oh, that's some good stuff. Just to kind of unpack a couple of things that you said in there. Number one, I am a big believer in coaching. Like the last 2 years, I've invested in a coach, and I just invested in a coach this year because I find, like, for myself, like I take more action when I'm accountable to somebody. And so I just find coaches like extremely valuable, especially if you find one that you really resonate with. But I was gonna ask you just advice for the listeners out there. Like the first piece of advice is like, I think sometimes when they see folks, influencers like yourself out there, like they do think that everything is like perfect, right? And
Right.
so, because like how you were talking earlier, even before I asked you about kind of like this year, you were just like, people just don't know, like, like things are crazy. Like, how do you, like, what, I guess, advice would you give people when they feel like they are cracking at the seams? Like, how do they take a step back and then figure out how to move forward without like totally stressing themselves out?
Totally. I would say first, like, stop, you know, stop wherever you are and just have a moment of gratitude because you're probably more awesome than you think you are.
Hmm.
I think that's the first thing. Like, I'm so hard on myself, like to the point where, my team the other day said, Kishshana, you just launched a book anthology and film in 6 weeks with five women who didn't know each other 6 weeks ago. And it's professional and it's amazing. And so it's going like, this thing is going to get picked up. It's going to be amazing. Like, can you just celebrate? And I was like, the launch did not go off as smoothly as I would have liked. Like I was just like,
Right. You were like,
was
instead of
actually the
celebrating the
ingredients.
wins.
Exactly. I was like, we did not win yet. I would like to say we won when the submission dates are closed and we have 400 submissions. Then I've won. Like
Right.
I was like, that's so first thing, stop and appreciate like where you are in that moment because you're probably much further along than you think you are. I think that's to me step one. And the second thing is to really take inventory of where you need the most help. Like, what's going to really move the needle? And if the answer is, I don't know, then to really align yourself with someone who can help you unpack that and be able to really to help you get clear on what you should be working on next. Like looking at the sort of quadrant of importance and urgency, like where should you really be spending your time and why? Like one of the best things I did was starting to say no to things that do not inspire me. Like if I go, oh God, I guess, then I have learned
Then
to start
that's
saying
like,
no.
no. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's smart.
yeah, yeah. And then, I feel like once you've done those two things, first acknowledge. So that's like what I call a feedback sandwich, right? Like, so you say the really good thing, this is amazing. And you're like, but here's the thing that needs work. And then you end it on, and
Right.
here's what's amazing. And then once you have done those first two steps and you start to see some progress, look at, just like when losing weight, look at the small wins. What did you get done today? What did you get done this week? Did you approach it with joy?
Hmm.
um, and to really make sure that you, with the resources you have, because there's help available at
Yeah,
every price point,
that's so true.
that you're able to align yourself with the kind of help that you need to get you to that next step up, and
Mm.
whatever that means for you. And so I think that those are just sort of like my three-step, advice: 1A, 1B, and 1C,
Right.
of to, to really start to think about a shift in your life.
Oh, that's good. And then just one more question before we get to the wrap up questions. And it's kind of getting at like what your focus is this year. Like you said, it's also being a coach to people, women who work 9 to 5, right? And
Yeah.
they're middle managers and they want to figure out how to become a senior manager and so forth. So, any advice for folks out there that are in that boat where they're just like, I feel like I'm stuck, right? Like they just can't seem to get anywhere or get that next promotion. Like so anything for them to think about or look at.
Totally. Whether it's me or somebody else, like getting with someone who can help you assess your career objectively is going to be really helpful. That's one. So taking a real career inventory. And then two, lining up that career inventory against what's happening in your life.
Mm,
I think that for me, as a Black woman of color, I've learned that the way that we get access to social capital is not the same as my white counterparts. The ways in which we think about family and support, where our paychecks go, how we spend our free time, not the same as our white counterparts typically.
hmm
The way we construct our work lives, not always the same. I'm going to work to do this job and I'm going to go home, right? Like I've
hmm
heard that from clients, from friends, from myself more times than I can count. And so when I start thinking about where you're stuck, I'd want to be thinking about, do you have a work sponsor? Who's your work mentor? Have you moved beyond mentorship? What does that look like? How do you find it? and being able to really set up, what I call like a cultivation plan for your own career, and then a stewardship plan. If I still think development terms. So, cultivation is like before the ask, and stewardship is after. So I always tell my fundraising clients, like, you have to steward your career the way you would steward donors. There's a
Right.
steps of activities that you have to do over and over again to get them to say yes again. And
Mm,
so, what are you doing to say yes to yourself again and again?
mhm.
How are you operating? Are you operating from a place of fear and not being willing to move on because you don't know what else is out there? Have you been, dinged enough in terms of like your self-esteem, your ego, um, knowing your work is good, but getting passed up for promotions, et cetera, where you don't feel confident truly that you can step out into the marketplace and do something else? Those are the types of questions I would want to know. And so that's where the self-reflection would begin for me if I were someone listening and thinking about that in my career, wondering why I'm stuck and wondering what to do next.
Mm, yeah. Oh, that's really good advice. Really good advice. So just two wrap up questions. So I think I'm gonna switch up the first one because usually I ask people, have you discovered your passion? But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, this is clearly your passion.
I think so. Ooh, I'm so glad. Oh, I had to send my coach a text the other day and say, I think I got my eureka. She writes me back, it's about time.
Right.
Like, it just, so yeah, I think this is it. I think this is it. So yes.
So instead, I will ask you what resources help keep you organized and sane?
The resources that keep me organized and sane. So I have a planner, a physical planner,
Mm,
that I actually don't use to keep my meetings so much. I write in it like I would a notebook.
mm.
But I have found that it keeps me super organized month to month on what my ideas are and things that I have to get done. I have an online business manager now. That was one of the things I had to give in, Shay. I had to give in.
Starting to grow a team.
Yes, who keeps me focused, organized, operationally, and also like really just thinking about the highest use of my time and making sure that I'm doing that. And that she handles a lot more of the details that I used to spend my time mired in. Because let's face it, when you don't want to do something big and risky, you spend your time on busy work. And so I
Hmm.
spent lots of hours doing the busy work of the business and not being in the business. I really believe in sort of project management tools, and so pick your poison, whichever one that is. If you're an Asana girl, a Trello girl, a Todoist, or whatever you like, one of those.
Right.
But use something, learn it, take all the webinars, and
Right.
then use it to its full capabilities. And then just surrounding myself with a team, making sure that I have a CPA now that I've invested in, making sure that I understand what I need if I'm going to need some VA help temporarily, making sure I have a graphic designer, I call her my creative catalyst, that I trust, making sure my developer knows what she's doing and that she always has her eye on what's going to be new and next for the team. So I've built a really solid, tight but small team. And so my people are my tools. So I think I'm practicing what I preach.
Mm.
And then just for my online stuff, just being able to, whatever tools you invest in, to learn them. And then I'm in a couple of online communities that are really great for me for learning. And I'm not a big contributor, which is sort of say, I guess I'm a lurker.
Right.
I read a lot more than I say because I'm still really just learning, but being in a couple that really feel like they're adding value to what I need to learn so that I'm able to then start adding value is probably like my foundational tool that I'm starting to use more now.
Well, that's pretty cool. Just one quick question based off of that, because you have a business manager, CPA, occasional VA, graphic designer, developer. At what point did you say like it's time for me to get a team? Because I think that's sometimes scary for people who've been an entrepreneur for a couple of years. They're like, ooh, do I now start paying these other people to help me, or do I just keep everything to myself?
Totally. And so what spurred me, I'm sort of embarrassed to say, but like I thought I was having a heart attack in my office, and I had tightening of chest. I was hyperventilating. I mean, like I had all the things. I think I was having an anxiety attack. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I was about to go into probably like 5 hours of client calls, and I was like, this cannot go on. Nope. This
Yeah.
can't, I cannot continue. And I'm so big on being like, I do not want to be a hypocrite wherever I can help it. And
Right.
I was like, I can't be preaching this stuff about ordering stuff to my clients and I'm sitting here a hot mess. This is dumb. I had been like interviewing different VAs and executive assistants over the course of a year, and no one ever really stuck. And when I landed on my current OBM, I remember thinking to myself, one day I'm going to hire her. She's awesome. And that day when I had that like anxiety attack, I literally sent her a note and was like, so I need to hire you today,
Like, I need your help right now.
right now. And when we got on the phone, she said, I'm so honored to work with you. I've been waiting for you to call me. And I was like, honored to work with me? I'm a mess. Get out of here. You know? But she had that was for me, it was a very it was a trigger that I would not wish for anyone to have. And oftentimes it is only then when we make moves. And so I became very passionate about making sure that we're able to scope and sequence our work to get the focus in the order we need before we get to that point. And so for entrepreneurs who are new, I would say you can do anything at any price point. You have got to know what you are best at, and you have got to hire out what you're not. Like, really opt from a place of strengths and manage your weaknesses by aligning yourself with really great professionals who can help you in the places that you suck, and
Right.
be okay with that, and build that into your business model for how you make money.
Yeah. Oh, good advice. Great advice. And then my other wrap up question is, what is just one thing you can't live without? It could be anything, tech, furniture, makeup, anything, food,
Oh
anything.
Lord, what can I not live without? Oh, I've been trying to give up
I
coffee.
know. It's a
Oh, you said
powerful
5 things. I
thing.
was like, "Oh, I don't get 5 things." Sorry, it's yeah. Like, there's a list of things I cannot live without. I would like to share. No, I find myself trying to quit the habit of coffee, but I think it doesn't even do anything for me. It's so funny. I just like the ritual of going to the coffee
The
store.
smell of it. The
The smell.
oh yeah, because that has its own little ambiance. Yeah.
Yes. And it's not even in a real coffee shop. Don't get excited. It's Dunkin' Donuts, okay? There's no ambiance. I don't want to fool you. I could have said yes, you're right, but that'd be a lie.
I'm
Uh,
thinking you going to like a specialty, in New York,
no,
like little
Dunkin'
coffee
Donuts down
shop.
the no, just Dunkin' Donuts down the street. It's so terrible. So yeah, so coffee is probably the thing that you that I my best friend gave me a Dunkin' Donuts gift card for Christmas. It was the most exciting thing ever. I love a good gift, and I was like, this is the best. So if I had to pick one thing right now, that would be it. That would be it. There's lots of things: shoes, clothes, my child, any order, travel. But yeah, today it's coffee.
We'll go with coffee today.
Today it's coffee.
And then can you just tell the listeners where to find you and if there are any, programs or cheat sheets or whatever that you would like them to know about, please let them know.
Absolutely. So please, please, please feel free to connect with me on social at Funddiva, FUNDDIVA. That's my handle on every social media platform. And visit my website, and it's www.kishshana, KISHSHANACO.com, kishshanaco.com. And there you'll be able to book a time to talk with me, download all of the free resources that I have. If you are still thinking about, if you heard about me because of the work I do with nonprofits and you're thinking about starting your own nonprofit, you can join my course, 501c Profit. That I still will keep because I love it. If you're thinking about working with a coach, please talk with me. If I am not the right person for you, chances are I know the right person. And if you work for a company or organization and you're looking for professional development for yourself or for your team, reaching me on my website is the best way to do so. It's really easy to use. And if with all else fails, you can always hit me on the email at let's chat at kishshanaco.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun.
Okay, so many golden nuggets in this episode. One of the golden nuggets is earlier on in the conversation, she had talked about how, like, money isn't everything. Money doesn't make you happy. And as someone who came from not having any money at all and, seeing the struggle of my parents and just struggling myself in the beginning, to now, earning a decent living and being like debt free, like, yeah, it's great to earn a decent living and to not have debt, but it's the money isn't what makes me happy. What makes me happy are the things that I do. And even if I couldn't afford, let's say, some of the fancier things like eating out, I'd still be happy because I'm with like friends and family and I'm just doing what I love. It's not the money or materialistic things that really bring you happiness. So I do think that is important for people to realize. And I think sometimes people think the more money they make, they will become happier. And really, what you need to figure out is what is it that you do that brings you happiness, even if you didn't have barely any money at all. And maybe you're in that situation now, but it's like what really truly brings you joy. And that's what you hold on to. But of course, like she also said kind of later on in the episode, if whatever you're doing, you're trying to figure out how to make more money, because you do need to sustain a certain type of lifestyle. But hopefully, the way that you're making your money is aligned to what makes you happy. And, everything could just kind of work in unison. But anyway, also, I love the questions that she asked herself when she was overwhelmed, like taking a life inventory. What are you actually doing for money? What are you actually passionate about? What's your purpose? And kind of mapping it out. And you guys know I'm a big bullet journaler. And that's one of the reasons also that I created the Life Cleanse, which isn't a bullet journal, but a life assessment journal. Is it's important to ask yourself those type of questions, because a lot of times, people are kind of like in despair or they just don't know what's wrong, but they just don't take a step back to really figure out what is going on and how they can make changes. And as she says, move the needle, right? So, anyway, I've got all those tips that she mentioned over in the show notes, bulleted for you at nachesnow.com/52. Please go over and follow her. I've also included all of her social media links because I think she's just such a positive influence and is really, really, truly like passionate about what she does. But anyway, thank you guys for listening to this episode. Also, I want to just put more light onto businesses, in particular women businesses. So if there's like any products like you'd like me to check out or review, and they're physical products, like send them to me. Send them to my P.O. Box, Nache Snow, P.O. Box 201, and that's Upper Marlboro, Maryland 20773. And if I like it, if I truly, truly like it, I will share it on the podcast and I will share it on my social media. And if there's things I don't like about it or I feel like that could be improved about it, I will provide you that honest feedback, from if the product worked for me to your website. Like maybe I love the product, but the website doesn't look trustworthy, like something I want to put my credit card in. So I'm all about like promoting people and empowering people and providing constructive feedback to make sure that we're uplifting each other. So if this is something you want to do, yeah, please, send it to me. Like I said, nachesnow.com, P.O. Box 201, Upper Marlboro, and that's Marlboro spelled Marlboro, Maryland 20773. All right. Please remember to rate the show no matter wherever you're listening, iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube. And leave me some comments. Let me know what you kind of think. And if, you have any suggestions on how you deal with being overwhelmed or how you've discovered your purpose, like kind of share your story. All right. Have a beautiful morning, noon, and night. And I will catch you guys next week. Talk to you later. Bye.